Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for December 12th, 2025. I'm Benji Fisher moderating, and also present are Ralph Kohler sharing their screen and Simo Helston. Go ahead, Ralph.
Thanks, Benji. We are looking currently at an issue I wanted to raise today, or not solely an issue, but general about a prototype, which is about basically providing a new approach or interface for the token browser that is based on HTMX. And Andy Marquez, APM Sooner, is leading that effort. And the issue number we are looking at is 3558415, alternative token selection from element. Because the token browser had several issues in regards of accessibility and general usability, how to add tokens to a field, which is basically usually accomplished by you have a button for, or a link for adding a token. And that should change, and it would be a good thing to discuss that approach early on with more people. I've already left a few comments for context. 1 second. There is the token dash, is it dash or slash? No, dash. Browser channel on the Drupal Slack. And there are already comments there and threads open for discussion. And I would simply go through the current state in this call and simply discuss the current state and how to go further. Oops. Point is, just for the context, at the moment there is one bug, and therefore it is necessary to go into the development settings and do not cache markup. Otherwise, HTMX requests fail due to omitting HTMX asset. That was pretty confusing. And to get the current version working, you have basically manually activate a field or the token browser for basically a entity type like node here or user. And if that is set, if you go, for example, to an article, and now if you tap with a tap button, you can see as soon as the CK editor field gets into focus, that token browser gets expanded. And if you tap now another time, you get into the token browser and it's built with area tree. And that way you get the group states announced. So at the moment you get basically the group current date, and that you can expand. And that way you get the list of tokens available in there. And there are also subgroups, and those can be, oops, again, that's the bug. And I thought, crap. I thought, let's do a quick workaround. Fresh PMU navigation.
I think just clearing caches is enough
No,
to
no,
temporarily fix it.
for one page load after that, it goes back to the bug. The only way, or do I have the big pipe is installed? Okay. Add content, article. Yeah, that way it works. Um, yeah, and that way you get basically the list of tokens. But yeah, I could go through the problems I've already identified, but are there any questions at this point? What we've seen so far?
So we're currently not trying to fix the bug or explain that. We're just trying to think about how it works ignoring that bug, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Um,
That bug is totally out of scope for this discussion here.
so could you actually use the token browser to insert something into that body field?
Yeah. Okay. This is a text. I want to have a token. And this token is and say I insert just the email. As you can see here. And it's already illustrating one of the problems. If you have a larger text body and a token is getting inserted, it's hard to spot it.
Would it be nice to have something that kind of in a CK editor styling, kind of that would spot those. Another thing I noticed when you inserted, I didn't, might be that uh, um, screen sharing, but I didn't notice anything happening. So was there any feedback on clicking the insert so that it kind of reacts so that the user can see that the button was pressed?
Um,
Oh yeah, there now I see there is a fight.
yeah.
Another thing I'm interested in, how does this interface work with smaller screens or small windows?
Sort of works.
Possible to use it, but there is a lot of kind of a lot of stuff goes outside the viewport, your code, or at least what you can scroll.
Yeah. Yeah, but those are styling related issues. But yeah, I agree.
Uh, can you kind of make it go smaller so that if you want to kind of somebody wants to like edit back and forth body and then I can't see what is the next field. So is it possible to minify it or somehow hide it?
Simply click, remove the focus from the body field, and that way browser is getting hidden. And same as if you get the focus into that, then the next browser is shown. So, but that is also one of the problems. If two extreme examples, let's say you have a long text of body, and then you have to scroll down, down, down until you reach that. So it's not in close proximity, but same as if you, for example, have a preset for a body text with, let's say, you are able to set the height in rows for a CK editor field. And let's say I simulate it right now just, but if you have something like that, it's not clear that basically a token browser is expanded down here. And that's the same problem for screen reader users. At the moment, there is no Drupal announce that this token browser got invoked, so it could go unnoticed. And yeah, it's not in close proximity, and that is one potential problem. And also the question how to invoke it, because if you, let's say, 1 second, another thing to illustrate is if you tap through and you have the setting that it's not only for CK editor, but also, for example, for text fields, then now it opens here. You have to go through all that, tap further. The next goes up. And it's a lot of tapping as well as it becomes quite busy. And if you go the other way around, you can see it's a lot of showing and hiding, showing and hiding, showing and hiding, and the screen gets busy that way.
I think I would prefer it to have some sort of button to open it or to activate it. Because I think on a lot of sites there might be like you use a token maybe once or twice a year, but on all the other time you just use that. It's kind of a adding noise. So I think
Yeah.
I would prefer it to be maybe something in the CK editor kind of bar or kind of next to that text format. So something that could be or enabled and like enabled or and disabled. It may be on node level or field level, so something like that. Not sure if it could be kind of form level action to
Yeah.
enable or disable that.
Yeah, a hotkey would be one option and or a button, like you've said. Another option I wondered about is basically if you have at the moment, if you would basically say, if I use two open brackets, then the token browser opens and not down there, but right underneath there, hovering, that you have it in close proximity and get some sort of autocomplete. Because at the moment, another problem from my perspective is also for someone with a small working memory like myself, it's intimidating knowing where to find basically certain tokens in which group or in which subgroup and so forth, and where to go. And that list is simply overwhelming each and every time. It's like, yeah, searching the needle in the haystack. As you can see here, the orienting and searching is quite demanding.
So would it be better if when you open up one of these submenus, um, everything else went away and you only saw the current submenu? Would that be less overwhelming?
Um, no, there's still the problem from my perspective, because what would change if I am, for example, now in content language and the token I'm looking for isn't there, then I would still have to go back one level or up one level and search for it. It's
Well,
either way that,
the way it currently works, if you open up a submenu and don't find what you're looking for, you're probably going to click once to close that submenu.
yeah,
So that's a pretty similar user interaction to having everything else go away. So you just see the submenu and then you don't find what you want and you click some sort of back button. I
so
mean,
you mean, go ahead.
one thing I don't like about this that I think helps make it overwhelming is that you have all these indented levels, and that's really not an effective visual clue to orient you.
Yeah,
And if we only had the content language submenu and its children, and we didn't see current page, didn't see current date, I think that would be perhaps a little less confusing.
Hmm.
But I also agree that having some mechanism for autocomplete would be a big improvement.
Or sort
Um,
of a filter functionality. So you get from a hierarchical list, like it's currently, if you, for example, have a filter field on top, and that is basically filtering the list of available tokens based off your filter criteria, and then you get a flat list
right.
and leave
And
basically the grouping that way.
and I think Simo gave a thumbs up to the idea of having autocomplete. And yeah, I guess you were originally suggesting that autocomplete might happen when you enter something in the text field itself. But I think maybe I prefer the idea of that you just gave of doing it in the whatever modal or whatever that's called, adding an autocomplete field at the top and then just showing the submenu that's selected that matches the partial token you've entered.
Yeah.
I'd also like to go back to the question or the problem you mentioned at the beginning that if you are inserting a token in the middle of a long text field, then it's not very visually clear. What do you think of the idea of inserting a token and then highlighting the inserted token?
Yeah. So basically some
Oh,
sort of pill.
Um, I'm not sure what you mean by pill, but let me just mention that Gareth Alexander has joined us. Hi, Gareth.
Oh, hi, Gareth.
Sorry I was late. I've just been listening in intently. Thank you.
I'll paste in again a link into the Zoom chat of the issue we're looking at. And this is the contrib module token browser, which is HTMX based. And we're just discussing the general user interface that it provides. So Ralph, what do you mean by a pill?
Um, a pillar means simply a similar to 1 second type. Ah, simply something like that.
Oh,
Some sort of badge with a background color, so it's visually highlighted and steps out of the text body, so it's clear that it's a concept that is not strictly part of the content there, but something different. So visually distinguish it.
that's not what I have in mind. Could you go back to your text
Yeah,
field and
yeah.
put in some text and then enter a token? Okay, so now just shift and use the right arrow key to select the whole token that was just inserted. Oh, oops. Okay, so that's what I'm suggesting, that when the token is inserted, it automatically does this. And that gives you a few advantages. One, it's visually distinct. You don't have any trouble, or at least if your vision is good, you don't have any trouble seeing where it is. Second, you have the option of using the cursor key left or right to continue typing or inserting other tokens, either to the left or right of where it was inserted. And third, if you just made a mistake and meant to insert one token above or below in the menu, um, you can insert that one and it should replace the current selection.
Okay. Understood. So basically, to move, you mean also for one, highlight the token as a selection and also move the focus back to the CK editor field away from the token browser.
Yeah, I think that would be a good complement.
Okay, 1 second. I just have to find it because there was one example in one of the comments. Was it by Jürgen? Yeah, because the problem is that is one of the problems to consider is the case if you want to add a single token to a field, then it totally makes sense to move the focus after selecting a token back to the field the token gets inserted in. But then there is also the use case of fields that have several tokens, that need several tokens to be entered in a row. And that way, moving the focus back to the field after selecting a token would be cumbersome because it's a lot of back and forth then. That is just a use case to keep in the back of your mind, but I'm in line with that focus approach. But on the other hand, it also has the problem still. It works for if you actively adding a token right now, but at the end of the day, let's say the scenario you are a user revisiting an article, for example, with, let's say, 7 tokens inserted across the body, how to find them again. That is the reason why I've still sort of like the idea of a visual highlight or distinguishing factor to the regular content text.
I also like the idea of visual, with visually distinct tokens. Also, it has this kind of a X mark where you can delete the whole token. But then there is the question of if you also want to edit the tokens, then it would make sense to be able to identify whether it's valid token or not. But that works in formatted text. If you want to insert into a field without CK editor, then we can't it can't be like the only option. So the default, I think, should be just to have the text. We don't know people will use CK editor, or someone might be using something else, like we usually use IDMT or whatever. But I think it should be editor feature for highlighting the token.
I'm still having a lot of trouble with
Yeah.
your audio, Simo. So I gathered you were talking about whether someone is using CK Editor or not and alternatives to that.
Yeah, so if there is no editor and someone is inserting a token, then it wouldn't be able to visually highlight it
Ah.
like for several tokens. But in general, I like it to be able to visually highlight and also highlight it so that you can identify it.
So you mean basically in a case like that with a simple text field, those tokens won't be possible to highlight, while within I'm not sure if that's a message, that is also a text field, probably a long text, but for CK editor field, then visually distinguish it, but in those it won't work.
Yeah.
You can certainly select text in a plain text field, like go to the title field and type something and then double click on a word.
Yeah. Yeah, but the visual distinguishing was thought of basically a persistent visual distinguishing factor that is past the select a text snippet and persists also when the focus is on something else. So you all
Oh,
the time are able to distinguish, that is a token.
oh, I wasn't thinking of making it persistent. I was just thinking of making it selected. And
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
have multiple tokens and they're all highlighted, then that makes it harder to identify the one that was just inserted.
Also true.
It could be
Ah,
yeah, it could be different highlights, but still, I think it should be a feature for the editor.
Now, the way it currently works, the cursor is left at the start of the token when the token is inserted. And if you do want to insert multiple tokens in a row, maybe comma separated or whatever is in that screenshot, then you have to move the cursor to the end of the token, or you have to enter your tokens right to left,
Well,
which is
that's
very
definitely something
unnatural.
that it should be in there. definitely should be in the end after inserting a token.
Yeah, but another problem is basically if you see here, I'm right after the text. If I go in, let's say I go in here and I insert that one. And now if I want to continue typing, I have, and now, as you can see, the focus is at the beginning of the CK editor field. That's another problem.
A slightly related point is that the token goes in without any spacing.
Yeah. One question, is a spacing needed sometimes and sometimes not in cases?
You might want to put a comma after the token rather than a space, or comma then a space.
You would still want a space though, even if you put a comma. It would be a comma then space. But yeah.
Okay, Simo has to leave. Hope to see you next week.
I see no. But I wonder, is there, from my perspective, it doesn't feel like there's always the case that you always need a comma. In a scenario like that, you need a comma. But if you have, for example, a hello and then say display name, how are you doing? For example, just an arbitrary example, but
Mm.
Oh, I didn't mean to suggest that you always want a comma. I think sometimes you will want a space and
yeah.
sometimes you will want a comma or something different.
Yeah, so I wonder if it's that would be basically the argument against
Yeah.
a space or a comma and keep the behavior like it is, but maybe um, the position of the cursor might be the gist of the problem.
So did I spot that correctly? If you use a keyboard to insert the thing, insert the token, the cursor doesn't return to the point.
Yep.
But if
Uh,
you mouse click, then you get returned to the.
yep. 1 second. If I now, yeah, there I remain there, but if I go that way and go in here, yeah, I'm at the beginning. So it's a difference between keyboard and mouse.
So is the required kind of functionality that if you choose the token gets placed and the cursor should return to the box if you use a keyboard as well as.
Yeah, at the moment the focus remains on the token browser, even though the cursor gets positioned within the CK editor field. But you then still have to move backwards with Shift Tab or the cursor or the mouse cursor to the CK editor field. So at the moment it caters more for a scenario like that where you have several tokens in a row. And I'm not sure what the best approach would be. And another problem from my perspective in previously, one second, I can just unplug just the recording. Oops. To illustrate how the token browser looked in that merge request looked one iteration before that. Back then, it was simply the entire field, as you can see here, and
Date in fallback, a date in HTML underscore date format. December, a date in HTML underscore date line format. 2025-12-02-3:7:54 +0100 button. A date in HTML underscore month format. 2000, a date in HTML, the current date, the current date, current page, current page, expanded button. Content language, collapsed button, list 6 items, level 2. Content language, expanded button. Interface language, collapsed button. Interface language, the page number of the current page when the value of a specific query string field of the current page, but the title of.
As you can see, back then it was just a label and the description was hidden, but you were able to click the entire cell, let's call it that way. But now it got changed to the label, the token name, the description, and the body and the button. And from my perspective, that is, if you try to announce that in a screen reader, it becomes cumbersome. Ideally, it would be from my perspective. Sorry, you asked something?
I didn't ask anything.
Oh, I heard something. Oh, therefore, sorry. And the problem here, from my perspective, more the ideal case because if you go in here with a screen reader,
Safari, create Arctic focus, video call off, group. To open the notifications menu, press Control, rich text editor, editing area, main, current date, expanded button, token browser for body, region. Visited, link, the PHP documentation.
as you can see here, for
You are
one,
currently on a link.
if you just tap, you get
Visited, link, the PHP doc, custom format, current date, custom, the current date and the custom
you
titles
get
are.
the if a token has a link in it, that gets announced only, and then you go
Rich text editor, editing area, main, press option 0 for help, edit text, insertion at end, insert token fallback date format button. You are currently on the button, insert token HTML date button.
And that way you
Items
only
are
get
text,
the label and the
rich text
insert
editor.
button. But ideally, from my perspective, it would be simply having the label and then the description for the entire field. If you have a single field as focus,
Custom format, current date, custom desktop group, vertical scroll, voiceover off.
it's get chatty. So you can simply tap through that you get page number, the page number of the current page when viewing paged lists. And that way a screen reader user could jump off at any time, and sighted users could also see simply page number and page number of the current page, because the token itself is not really of interest in here. It's just additional noise from my perspective. And if you could go in here and simply tap, click, whatever, and you don't have basically an additional button from my perspective. I'm more leaning towards in the direction we had here. Use instead of the token label, the label itself and the description for sighted users as well. And that way every necessary information would be in place and it would be clearer.
So I'm not sure. Are you suggesting that we go back to this version where we just show the token to be inserted? Or are you suggesting that we hide the token and just have the label and description?
Yeah, I would, instead of the token, I would go functionally with the approach we had here, but instead of the token label, show the label and the description instead.
Okay. That sort of conflicts with the previous idea of having some sort of autocomplete, because if the autocomplete is going to be based on the actual token, then you need to see that token in the browser and not just the label and description.
But aren't the terms contained in the token itself also contained in the token label? And so it's basically the same number, because the odds are that you don't look for a air quotes token for something like current dash page dash page dash number, but instead you look for a concept like I look for page and number and not for a explicit completion for a actual token. For that it requires that you memorized all of those, but instead just remember the concepts and the context you're interested tokens to be in.
I think if we're going to do autocomplete, I really think it has to be based on the whole token
Okay.
because the label here, page number, only describes the last section of the token, right? We have current page, colon, page number. And there might be more than one token that creates a page to which you can apply page number. And you need to know the full context when you're doing autocomplete.
Hmm. Current user, current user. So a token is basically chopped together is a combination of basically the group and subgroup a token is in and the label, isn't it?
Right. But you might have that same label at different places in the token browser, having different parents.
Yeah.
Um, if, for instance, open up last login,
Let's log in.
and you have various formats for the last login time, custom format, fallback date format, HTML date, and so on. If you have something else, like there's a token for the current time, isn't there?
Mm, time since
I mean, not.
last login.
No, I'm looking at something on a higher level than this submenu.
Oh,
Current date right at the top. And you again have fallback date format, HTML date, HTML date time.
mm-hmm.
So if your autocomplete is based just on the label and you have HTML time, for example, you don't know whether that's HTML time of the current date, current timestamp, or if it's the HTML time of the current user's last login.
Okay, that's a good point.
So if we are going to have an autocomplete, I think it should be based on the token as it gets inserted. And then I think that information has to be in the browser.
Yeah. Otherwise, you would have to basically, if you, I see it not necessarily also as autocomplete, but also could consider it as a filter. And if your entire list of tokens gets reduced to the matches that have, for example, HTML year in it, then you would need to, and if only that label and the description would be shown in a cell, then you would need additional rows for basically the wrappers, aka the groups where those are in, and that would, yeah, that is suboptimal. Uh,
Yeah, and I don't think there's any limit to the nesting of tokens. So that would be pretty ugly, actually.
yeah, yeah. Completely agree.
The other difficulty with autocomplete is some of those tokens have dashes and underscores, and if your autocomplete is based on the token current dash date, you might type that in, but then not realize you need a dash or an underscore at the right time. So you'd need to know what the token was actually called.
Yeah, but out of curiosity, um, would the following make sense? In the car in without any filter applied or autocomplete applied. In here, just display the token label and the description. Remove the actual token and the button. But if you start to filter or or autocomplete, then switch over and also display the actual token. And that way you would be able to distinct and or replace the label custom format with current date custom and keep the description. And that way you get, for example, custom format and a current date custom, and you get, let's say, current user custom where also current date is in. And that way you will be able to distinguish which of the tokens that apply to the concept you were filtering or auto-completing for. Would that be a reasonable approach?
I don't quite follow you. So
My thought,
go ahead.
my thought was simply in the results view, as soon as you start filtering, um, instead of showing custom format, show the token name instead. So that you have, for example, current date HTML week, a date in HTML week format, and you have where is it in last login, and you have current user last login HTML date, a date in an HTML date format, and that way it becomes clear that it all has the same matches, but they are in different context, communicated by basically the different tokens that are used
So
in
you
the,
are you suggesting that you change what's displayed
yeah,
once you start using the autocomplete?
yeah.
That seems confusing to me. What if instead of an insert button always having the same text, we use the token as the button text? And then we wouldn't have the token as part of the um, as part of the text between the label and the description. And I think that's the way the Drupal 7 token browser worked. You had something styled as a link showing the token text, and you would click on that link to insert.
Yeah, but in the token browser, you were only able to add a single one. But the problem with moving the token to the insert button to the button label is if you have someone in a screen reader, for example, go in here, then you see insert current page number, insert current page query, question mark, insert current page title, and it's hard to read. And that is basically the point I try to make with the approach here, where you're able to press the entire cell, I call it now, for now. There you could basically get the announcement, title, current page, the title of the current page instead of, well, basically you also get automatically the description. You can jump off at any time. And with the token label moved in here, you still need to basically go into the voiceover cursor and step through each and every part of that cell, page number, current page, just to illustrate.
VoiceOver on Safari. Create article vertical line brush cited rich current date. Collapsed current date. Expanded button custom format. Current date custom colon. The current date in the custom format. Visited link. The PHP documentation. For details. Insert token custom format button. You are VoiceOver off.
And that is the problem I see with that approach here, that you have to step through that step by step instead of tap into that custom format one and get the option to announce either just the label, the token label, and the description, or jump off anytime before that.
Okay, I'm keeping an eye on the clock, and we only have about 4 minutes left. I'm afraid we don't have much consensus, but we do have a lot of suggestions. So, one suggestion is to have some sort of autocomplete, which should probably be part of the token browser itself rather than in the body field.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm wondering, because I know I've seen select 2 being used in conjunction with module filter. Is it module filter or is it config management? And that's a really nice solution to managing a big long list. But I know select 2 has been moved to Tagify, and I wonder if this is this is not ideal, but getting this to work with Tagify better, and make that a kind of a recognized UX improvement is, yeah, this is pretty awful, but if you can use this in conjunction with Tagify, it means you can actually access the tokens a lot easier.
Is that Tagify you refer to?
Yeah. Because if you scroll down, you'll see that the auto select, there's a wee picture Tagify preview there. You can see the examples kind of. I'm sure that should be. I thought that was one of those was a moving GIF.
No. Doesn't look like.
Yeah, the Tagify preview in mine shows you how it works.
have to take a look after the meeting. Yeah, but that is something like I had in mind about the token to make it visually distinct in regard when it's pasted. That was the idea behind what I meant with pills, sort of.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've actually implemented this on anything, but I do remember it was one of my colleagues overhauled the config management page. So when you were setting up your config splits and you had to add some config to one of the splits, they installed the select 2 module as it was at the time, and it actually added the autocomplete field itself, and so you didn't have to go down and select each of the items. You could use the auto select, and it almost overhauled that experience.
Okay, so we are at time. Again, I don't think we have consensus on a lot, but we do have a lot of suggestions. And Ralph, are you willing to go through the recording and pull out those suggestions for a comment?
Yeah, I can try. Yeah, but I guess, yeah, I try to summarize to a degree, but maybe I also suggest to Andy also to watch the recording. But yeah, for a summary, I try.
Thank you.
And I guess we should revisit this issue at one point if everybody has seen it. And also feel free to join the token browser channel and to discuss on the threads created there already, and maybe just revisit that issue in the future and see and try to improve it. Because the direction is definitely a good one and an improvement over the current token browser, current token module. And yeah, the token browser should move, and the plan is to move it into the token module. And therefore, yeah, it needs more thought work. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other last words?
Not from my end. Just have a nice weekend.
Okay, same to you. Till next week then.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.